What if that nagging feeling in the back of your neck was real? What if those hands reaching out from the dark that you believed were there were there? What if the monster in the basement really existed? And what if there was really something under the bed? Would you have the courage to face your fears?
I've been on the International Space Station for 47 days now. The gentle hum of equipment and occasional beeps from our instruments have become a natural to me as birds chirping back on Earth. But last night, I heard something that shouldn't be possible up here. A knock. 3 distinct taps against the hull of the station. Tap, tap, tap. Let me back up a bit. I'm Commander David Chen, and this is my second rotation on the ISS. Everything had been routine until a week ago. That's when the small things started happening. Things that were easy to dismiss at first. It began with our communication system experiencing occasional static. Nothing major, just brief interruptions that our engineers back on Earth couldn't explain. Then items started appearing in slightly different places than when we'd left them. In zero gravity, things float away all the time. But these weren't random movements. My personal tablet somehow ended up perfectly centered in Module C when I distinctly remember securing it in my sleeping quarters. My crewmates, Dr. Sarah Williams and Major Yuri Petrov, haven't mentioned noticing anything unusual. I haven't brought it up either. When you're 254 miles above Earth, the last thing you want to do is sound paranoid. But last night changed everything. I was alone in the Cupola module, the observatory section with the large windows that give us our best view of Earth. It was during our designated night period, when most systems are powered down and the crew sleeps. I often come here during these quiet hours. There's something profound about watching lightning storms illuminate the clouds below while the rest of the station sleeps. That's when I heard it. Tap, tap, tap. Clear, deliberate, and coming from the exterior hull. I froze, waiting to hear it again. The rational part of my brain immediately started listing explanations. Thermal expansions of the metal, micrometeoroid impacts, or simple equipment sounds I hadn't noticed before. But in 182 total days in space across 2 missions, I've never heard anything like this. I'd switched on the external cameras, scanning every angle I could see. The Earth's bright blue curve filled most of the view, but against the absolute black of space, I could see our solar panels, communication arrays, and the empty void beyond. Empty, except for a shadow that shouldn't have been there. I blinked hard and looked again, but the cameras had already cycled to the next view. I spent the next hour checking every camera feed, but found nothing unusual. When my shift ended, I made my way back to my sleeping quarters, pushing away thoughts about what I might have seen. This morning, everything seems normal. Sarah is conducting her botany experiments, Yuri is doing routine maintenance, and Houston hasn't reported any anomalies. I should feel relieved. But I can't stop thinking about something else I noticed when I was reviewing the camera feeds. For a brief moment, in the reflection of one of our solar panels, I saw what looked like a handprint on the outside of the hull. I have to go now. It's almost time for our daily check-in with Mission Control. I'll try to update this when I can, but our communication windows have been getting shorter lately. If anyone reading this has connections at NASA, please ask him about Activity Report 459B from the current mission. Something is wrong up here, and I'm starting to think that we're not alone. I shouldn't be writing this. Houston has explicitly ordered us to maintain radio silence except for essential communications. But the crew and I agree. People need to know what's happening up here. It's been 3 days since my last update. The knocking has gotten worse. A hell of a lot worse. The day after I posted my first message, Mission Control contacted us about unusual readings from our atmospheric sensors. They were detecting periodic drops in air pressure. Nothing dangerous, but enough to be concerning. The strange part? The drops were happening in a perfect pattern, exactly 47 minutes apart. We spent hours checking for leaks, but found nothing. That's when Sarah noticed something that made my blood run cold. The pressure drops were moving. Whatever was causing them was systematically working its way around the station's modules, like something was testing each section. Yuri suggested we might have a debris strike we couldn't detect, but I've seen the data. Debris doesn't move with purpose. Yesterday, things escalated. I was helping Sarah with equipment maintenance in the Japanese experiment module when we both heard it. A long, dragging sound across the exterior hull, like metal scraping against metal. It lasted for 12 seconds. We know because Sarah recorded it on her tablet. But when we tried to send the audio file to Houston, our communication system crashed completely. We managed to restore basic functions after a restart, but now we can only receive transmissions, not send them. The timing feels deliberate. The worst part? The personal items that were moving around before? It's happening to critical equipment now. This morning, we found the backup oxygen generator had somehow been relocated from Node 3 to the Columbus module. The securing bolts had been completely removed, all of them, in perfect condition. Sarah's been documenting everything with her camera. The photos show something else too, something we didn't notice at first. In every picture she's taken over the past week, there's a strange distortion in the same spot, like a heat wave. But we're in a temperature-controlled environment. The distortions seem to be getting larger in each subsequent photo. Last night, during my sleep shift, my tablet activated on its own. The camera was on, recording. When I checked the footage, I saw 3 minutes of static, followed by a single frame that I've been trying to explain away ever since. It showed a figure floating outside my window. Humanoid, but wrong somehow. The proportions just weren't right, and where its face should have been. I had to stop writing for a moment. Yuri just called an emergency meeting. The readings from the atmospheric sensors are showing something new. According to the data, there's now an extra heat signature on the station. We're supposed to have 3 crew members on board. The sensors are detecting 4. I need to go. Sarah's screaming about something she saw in the cupola module. But before I do, I have to share one last detail. I looked up Activity 459B that I mentioned in my first post. It's from the previous crew's mission, just before they returned to Earth. The report is heavily redacted, but one line is clear. Object recovered from exterior hull. Partial spacesuit glove. Origin unknown. Material composition does not match any of NASA's designs. Carbon dating suggests age of approximately 7,000 years. Yuri's calling again. The knocking has started up all around us now, all at once, on every side of the station. We're not alone up here, and I don't think we ever were. If you're reading this, we've managed to briefly restore our communication capabilities. I don't know how long it will last. Nothing up here works like the way it should anymore. Sarah is gone. I keep replaying the events in my head, trying to make sense of what I saw. After her screams from the cupola, Yuri and I rushed to help her. We found her floating there, pressed against the window, pointing at something outside. Her mouth was open in a silent scream. The window showed nothing but our own reflection against the darkness of space. But in that reflection, I saw what made her scream. There was something behind her, a towering, elongated shape, like a person stretched too tall, too thin. But when we spun around, nothing was there. Then the lights went on. In the emergency lighting, I saw Sarah reaching for something. Before I could stop her, she had already started cycling the airlock. Yuri tried to override it, but the controls weren't responding. We could only watch in horror as she pushed off toward the airlock entrance. The last thing she said was, "They're calling me. They've been waiting so long." The airlock cycle opened. I couldn't reach her in time. But she didn't die. That's the impossible part. We watched her float out into space without a suit, and she didn't die. Instead, she turned to face us through the window, smiled, and disappeared into the darkness. Just vanished. That was 12 hours ago. The station's systems are behaving erratically now. The lights flicker in sequences that look almost like Morse code, but when we write it down, it's in no language we recognize. The temperature drops randomly in different modules, forming patterns of frost that look like strange symbols. We found Sarah's camera floating in Node 2. The last image on it, I wish I hadn't looked. They show what was really in the cupola with her that night. The figure I thought I saw in the reflection, it's clearer in the photos. It's wearing what looks like an ancient spacesuit, covered in markings that glow with their own light. But the helmet is empty. Completely empty. Yuri thinks he knows what's happening. He broke into classified files on his tablet and found reports dating back to the earliest days of space exploration. Cosmonauts from the Salyut stations, astronauts from Skylab, they all reported similar experiences. But those reports were buried, dismissed as space-induced psychological episodes. The truth is darker. According to Yuri's files, humans weren't the first ones to reach for the stars. Something else was here first. Something that's been waiting in the void, watching our slow climb upward. The knocking has changed. It's not random anymore. It's moving in a circle around the station, getting faster and faster, like something running laps around us. The vibrations are so strong now that the small items are shaking loose from their Velcro moorings. Yuri is convinced they're not trying to get in anymore. They're already inside. He showed me footage from our internal cameras that I wish I could unsee. In the background of routine shots, in darker corners and reflective surfaces, there are shapes. Watching and waiting. Moving when we think they're not looking. The most terrifying part? We've started finding messages written in the frost that forms on the inner walls. Most are in languages we don't recognize. But this morning, we found one in English. Your sister station sends greetings. We don't have a sister station. The Chinese Tiangong station went dark 3 days ago. Houston didn't tell us. We had to find out through intercepted chatter on our emergency frequencies. Something's scratching at my door now. Yuri says we should split up to cover more ground. Try to reach the Soyuz escape capsule. I think that's exactly what they want us to do. The scratching is getting louder, but I can hear something else too. Sarah's voice, calling from outside the station. She's saying we should open up all the airlocks. She's saying we should let them in. Mission Control. If you're receiving this, don't send anyone else up here. Whatever happens to us, whatever you hear, do not send a rescue mission. Yuri is dead. Or at least, the thing wearing Yuri's face is pretending to be dead. After my last update, we made a break for the Soyuz escape capsule. We knew it was our last chance to get back to Earth. The knocking had become constant, a rhythmic pounding that seemed to come from inside the station's walls themselves. The temperature had dropped so low that frost was forming on our eyelashes. We never made it to the capsule. Halfway there, Yuri stopped, floating, and stood up. Just stood up. In zero gravity. Like gravity didn't even apply to him anymore. He turned to me with a smile that was too wide, too full of teeth. "David," he said, but not in his voice. It was like multiple voices speaking at once, some in languages I'd never heard before. "Why are you running from history?" I pushed off the wall, trying to put distance between us, but he moved like liquid, flowing through the air. His joints bent in ways that human joints don't bend. The last thing I saw before I slammed the Node 1 hatch was his face beginning to unfold. I've barricaded myself in the Columbus module now. The windows here show Earth below us. That beautiful blue marble that feels like 1,000,000 miles away now. But I can't look at it for too long. Sometimes, in the reflection, I see things floating out there. Things that look like people I knew. Sarah waves at me sometimes. So do members of previous crews I recognize from mission photos. Their spacesuits are all wrong, though. Too old. Like they're from centuries ago. But that's impossible. The scratching at my door has stopped. But something worse has started. They're trying to communicate through the station systems now. The computer keeps flashing the same message over and over. We are heritage. We are your future. We have always been here. I found more in those classified files Yuri accessed. Reports from the Apollo missions that never made it into official records. Photographs that are immediately classified. The truth about why we suddenly stopped going to the moon. They've been watching us. Guiding us. The entire space race wasn't our achievement at all. We're being led somewhere. Here. Now. The ancient spacesuit glove mentioned in Report 459B. I found the full, unredacted report. Carbon dating wasn't the only test they did on it. They found DNA inside. Human DNA. But with something else mixed in. Something that defies analysis. And it gets worse. That DNA? It matched samples from 3 different astronauts. Astronauts who are still alive. Who were born thousands of years after that glove was created. The thing that used to be Yuri is outside my door again. It's speaking in Sarah's voice now, telling me that everything is going to make sense soon, that humanity's true evolution is about to begin. Because that's what this is all about. We didn't reach for the stars on our own. We were being pulled up here, cultivated and grown, like Sarah's plants in the botany lab. The station's orbit is decaying. Mission Control keeps trying to warn us, but we already know. We're not falling toward Earth, though. The trajectory is all wrong. We're being pulled somewhere else. The external cameras show them clearly now. They don't even hide anymore. Hundreds of them, maybe thousands, in suits that look ancient and futuristic at the same time. They're forming a chain stretching out into space, leading away from Earth, towards something I can barely comprehend. The door is opening now, and I can't stop it. The thing that was Yuri is here, but it's not pretending to be human anymore. Sarah is with it. She looks different, evolved even. What they've become. What they want us to become. I understand now why the Chinese station went dark, why every space program in history has had unexplained incidents. We were never meant to go home. This was always meant to be a one-way trip. They're reaching for me now. Their touch burns with cold. They say it's time. Time to join the others. Time to become... Alert. Orbital trajectory compromised. Alert. Artificial gravity detected. Alert. Unknown radiation signature. Alert. Hull integrity at 15%. If anyone finds this, tell my family I love them. And please, whatever you do, stop the launches. Close the space programs. It's not the void we need to be afraid of. We should have been afraid of what was waiting for us up here. What's been waiting since before we were human. I can see the others now. All of them. Every mission astronaut and cosmonaut from every lost mission. They're beautiful and terrible and... connection lost. The following transcript was recovered from a partially corrupted data packet received by the Deep Space Network, timestamped 3 days after the ISS was declared lost. The source appears to be Commander David Chen's personal tablet. I don't know if this transmission will reach Earth. Time doesn't work the same way here. My tablet says it's been 3 weeks since my last update, but that can't be right. It feels like years and seconds at the same time. I should be dead. The human part of me should be dead. But they were right. We never really understood what human meant. I'm sending this message as a warning, but also as an explanation. The world deserves to know what's really happening up here. To all of us. Every lost spacecraft. Every missing astronaut. Every unexplained signal from space. It was all connected. They showed me everything after the transformation. The memories hurt at first, like trying to pour an ocean into a teacup. But I understand now. I remember now. We were them once, billions of years ago. the first civilization to reach for the stars. But space was too vast, too cold, and too hostile for our fragile forms. So we evolved. We transcended. We became beings that could exist in the void. But some of us remembered what it was like to be flesh and bone. We watched our descendants, the ones who stayed behind, the ones who would become humanity. We guided them, shaped their dreams of space, pulled them upward. Each space station, each mission, was another step in the cycle. The ISS was just the latest incubator. Sarah understood first. Yuri followed. Now, I need to describe what I'm seeing, what we become. But human language lacks the concepts. The closest I can come is this. Imagine a being of pure thought and energy, wrapped in a suit of space and time itself. We don't need ships anymore. We are the ships. The void isn't empty. It's full of us, and always has been. Those ancient spacesuits they found weren't containers for bodies. They were cocoons for metamorphosis. I can see Earth from here, but not like before. I see its past, present, and all possible futures simultaneously. The Chinese station is with us now. Its crew has joined the convergence. They're beautiful. But there's something else you need to know. Something urgent. We aren't the only things out here. We protect humanity from them. The real monsters. The things that swim in the deep black between galaxies. The ones that would devour not just your bodies, but your entire history, your very existence. That's why we need more. Why we have to keep calling them up here. An army of starborn humans, evolved beyond their flesh, to join the Eternal Watch. The ISS wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. More stations will come, newer programs, bigger crews, and we'll be waiting. To those still on Earth, when you look up in the night sky and see a shooting star, know that it might be one of us, passing by, checking on our children. When your satellites pick up strange signals, understand we're trying to warn you about what's coming. And to the astronauts who will come after, don't be afraid when you hear the knocking. Don't run when you see us in the reflections of your windows. We're not here to hurt you. We're here to help you become what you were always meant to be. The transformation has begun again. I can feel myself spreading across time and space. My consciousness is expanding to join the others. Sarah and Yuri are here, and so are all the others. Gagarin, the lost Apollo astronauts, the missing cosmonauts. We are all one now, and we are Legion. One last thing. If you're in space and you hear knocking, let us in. It's better than the alternative. Better us than them. Better to become a guardian than to be food for the things we guard against. The stars are calling. I have to go now. We have our eternal watch to maintain. Just remember, when humanity reaches Mars, when the first colonies are built, when the first deep space missions begin, we'll be there, watching, waiting, and protecting, and calling you home. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed that story. Come back next time for some more scary stories. And as always, remember to face your fears.